Hello, and welcome to a demonstration of Topaz Labs' latest machine learning technology. We call them the AI series of products. So we're going to get started actually with Blurry Photos. And when we say blur, we mean a lot of blur. Now, as you look at this photo, you would think that it'd be impossible to fix it, but that's exactly what we're about to do. Now, you can run all of the Topaz products either as a plugin for Lightroom or Photoshop, or you can run them standalone. So in this case, we brought the photo into Photoshop, and here is the first product, Topaz Sharpen Ai. So once the product is launched, in this case, I think that the photograph is out of focus. So I'm going to choose the focus mode over here and then turn on auto. The auto is absolutely amazing because without you having to even worry about the sliders, it just automatically goes to the right place. And so now when you click update, let's see what happens. Oh my gosh. Okay, now this is amazing, because as you look at the left-hand side in the original photograph, there's practically no details there, especially when you look at the building or the road or the flowers, whereas on the right-hand side, the AI is now imagining all the details that are supposed to be in this photograph. For example, if you're looking at the building where you can't even see the windows or the lines or the details, the right side is remembering, actually, it is enhancing and hallucinating all the details that are supposed to be there. So if I like it, I just simply click apply and we're done. So basically, this is the way the photograph came out of your camera, and this is Sharpen AI. Now in this case, this is a photograph where things are out of focus. But please keep in mind that Sharpen AI can fix every kind of blur. The next example is motion blur. Now, motion blur, of course, can happen either from the subject moving or the camera shaking. There's a variety of reasons for motion blur. But when it comes to photographing kids, the kids are always moving. And that's why, especially when you look in their eyes, you can see the motion blur that's in their eyes. And again, to fix it, it's as simple as pulling down to Sharpen AI. So now this time around, instead of using the focus mode, we're going to use the stabilize mode. We do the same thing, we just turn on auto, and when you click the update button, after a few seconds of processing, wow. Again, every time you use these products, the word wow is going to come out of your mouth. Because as you zoom in a little bit closer, and we process this again, let's process that one more time. If you look at the left-hand side, you'll notice how the motion blur is causing the streaks that are in her eyes. You can see the softness that's in the nose or the lips, whereas on the right, the motion blur has been automatically reversed. And you didn't even have to necessarily tweak with any of the sliders. The auto feature just figures it out. And so now, if you're satisfied with it, you click apply, and we're done. So basically, as we get a little closer, this is the way that the photograph came out of your camera, and this is Sharpen AI. Now, if you're wondering how does Sharpen AI compare with comparable tools that are in Photoshop, here's a good example. On the left-hand side is the original photo that's blurry. This is out of focus. The center is the latest Photoshop Smart Sharpen filter, which unfortunately really doesn't do much to the image. And then finally, on the right-hand side, it's Topaz Sharpen AI that has miraculously recovered the details from the original photo. Now, the same ideology applies to motion blur. So this next example is a combination of blurs where not only is the camera shaking, but the flag is rotating at the same time. Which means that once again, if we look at what Photoshop's latest shake reduction technology, unfortunately, it really doesn't do much to the photo. Whereas on the right-hand side, Sharpen AI can handle multiple different blurs at the same time. It doesn't matter if the flag is rotating or the camera is shaking. It doesn't matter how many things are moving at the same time. The AI actually can figure it out and can fix your motion blur problems. In fact, this is so powerful that even if a fan is spinning, yes, it will actually stop the fan from spinning. If you wanted to. And of course, the applications of Sharpen AI are can be either applied globally across the entire image, or you can apply it to a certain part of a photograph, which happens very often. In this photo, the cards are in focus while his face, unfortunately, is out of focus. But if you focus on his face, suddenly his face comes into focus as well. So the next time you took that photograph that unfortunately just turned out a little soft, or sometimes even more than a little soft, then you know that Sharpen AI is the solution for you. So now let's transition to denoise. Noise happens when the ISO goes up. Simply, there is not enough light. So this is the Louvre Museum where there was not enough light and they said no flash. But because I've got Denoise AI, that's no longer a problem. So in this demonstration, we're going to look at things that are really severely bad. So this next example is 25,600 ISO. And instead of it being a photograph, it's actually this mishmash of Christmas lights of the greens and the purples and the pinks. Well, let's see what Denoise AI can do for us. So again, it doesn't matter if you're in Lightroom or Photoshop or standalone. When you go into Denoise AI, make sure that you choose the automatic option over here. Okay, I'm going to just choose auto right there. And when we click update, oh my goodness. All right, so let's take a look at what's really going on here. As we look at the left-hand side, and so I click update again, on the left, you could see how badly the noise just destroys all the details of the photo. I could see that in my hair, it's just the pinks and the greens and the purples, whereas on the right, most impressive part of Denoise AI is how it has recovered the subtle details of the wrinkles that are in my eyes. Or when I look at the frames of my glasses, how originally all the purples and the greens were contaminating it on the left-hand side, whereas on the right, all these details are repaired. And then finally, denoising in general in every other application is going to leave you with just blurry results. It tends to soften your photograph. Whereas in contrast, with Denoise AI, as you look at the left, the noise is so bad that we really can't see the pores or the wrinkles on the skin. Whereas on the right, all the wrinkles and the subtle details of the pores are all perfectly maintained. So now we're going to do one last one of these for you. And this time, if you thought that was really bad, at an ISO of 25,600, let's bring in an ISO that's even higher. Oh my gosh. Now this is actually one of Scott Kelby's photos, for those of you who are familiar with Scott Kelby. And unfortunately, in this photograph, there is more noise than there is photo. That's because the ISO is unbelievably high. So we're going to do the same thing as before. Just jump into Topaz Labs' Denoise AI. And again, just like before, we're going to choose the automatic option, but this time we're going to turn on the low light mode, which is one of the new modes in Denoise AI, and just click update. Oh man, this is just crazy. Because as you look at the left-hand side, I'm sure you immediately noticed the details that are on the music notes. Because on the left, the notes are being destroyed by the noise, whereas on the right, all of these fine, subtle lines and the little details of the music notes have been perfectly preserved, while the noise has been eliminated. And so now as you continue to investigate the photo, even in the worst parts of noise in the photo, where everything is practically covered in this really terrible luminance noise, on the right, it just looks like a properly exposed photograph with a high ISO. So this is the kind of miracle that you can, expect from Denoise AI. And just because I want to show you how long it takes to process a full, let's say 30 or 40 megapixel image, let's jump into Denoise AI once again. And then asking it to do the auto setting just the same way that we did before. So here we are with the low light. We're going to do auto, and it's going to update our image. I love it without even having to worry about where the sliders are. Of course, feel free to experiment with the sliders, but I think just the auto mode works great. Without you having to even worry about it, it miraculously just goes to exactly the right spot. And you're noticing that on my old iMac over here, which is about 4 years old, the processing is pretty fast on our full resolution frame. And we're done. Here we go. So let's compare. Basically, this is how the photograph came out of your camera. And this is Denoise AI. Let's do that one more time. There's the before, and here's the after. Okay, so we have so much faith in the power of Denoise AI that we use it on just about everything. But of course, it works best on the really high ISOs. If your camera says you got to shoot 25,600 ISO and above, don't worry about it. We have thousands of photographs where the ISOs are just outlandish. Here's one that's 250,000 ISO, and it's not a problem for Denoise AI. In fact, we're so confident about Denoise AI that even if we were to show you a difference between 25,600 ISO and 50 ISO, well, guess what? One of these photos is 50 ISO and the other one is 25,600. Now, you can examine it as much as you want, but I'm afraid nobody can really see which one of these two is the really high 25,600 ISO photograph. Well, I'll show you which one it is. It's actually the one that's on the left. But after it goes through Denoise AI, there is no difference between 25,600 and ISO 50, which surprisingly is the maximum and the minimum ISO settings of my camera. But after those extreme noise circumstances go through Denoise AI, they are identical to one another. That's 9 f-stops worth of difference. And for those of you who don't know what 9 f-stops means, it simply means the image on the left was exposed with 512 times less light than the image on the right. That's how dramatic of a difference there is between these two images, even though they look identical to one another. And that's how much of a game changer Denoise AI really is. So, doesn't matter if you're a wildlife photographer or a low-light photographer, noise is no longer an issue. So now let's transition to the one of the most famous and most favorite products, AI products from Topaz Labs, and that is Gigapixel AI. Pixels are just the nature of photography. When you have a photograph, you zoom in on it on the computer, sure enough, you get down to the pixels. And people always say the same thing when they zoom to this level. They're like, man, I wish I had more pixels. Well, guess what? Your wish is my command. This is not a joke, and it's not a lie. This is really all the information that we have. We don't have any more information. And this is what Gigapixel AI imagines from that information. Now, you're probably wondering, how does this actually work? So let's do one of these live right in front of you so you can see how you put it together. And we're going to start out with a really high resolution image. Okay, take a look at how high res this one is. Oh my goodness, it is 96 pixels by 96 pixels. I know, it's really low res. But we're going to, in Photoshop, choose the latest technology that Photoshop has, which is Preserve Details 2.0, and we're going to make it go 6 times bigger. 6 times. It looks pretty bad. Well, obviously, that's because we started out with something that was practically the size of an icon, and now it's not really much to work with. But now let's do the same thing using Topaz's Gigapixel AI. Automate, Gigapixel AI. We're going to go 6 times bigger, just like before, and then immediately, wow. Okay, now remember, the left side is all you have. You don't have anything else. And the right is Gigapixel imagining all of these details that are supposed to be there. Now, once again, notice how there are a variety of different options that are here. We can either choose that the subject matter is natural, or we can choose that the subject is man-made. This seems a little bit more man-made than it was natural. That's why I chose man-made. And also, you can control how much to suppress the noise or how much to remove the blur. And the auto-detect settings is once again on, which means that it can just simply take care of it for us. And if I'm happy with the results, and it looks really, really good, all we're going to do now is just click on the Save button, and here we go. We're done. So Gigapixel actually gives you a comparison. Basically, this is what it would be like if you were to use Photoshop to upscale that photo, and this is Gigapixel AI. So you're probably wondering, what can you do with 3,600% more pixels? Well, it's got some applications. The first thing that I did was I grabbed a 4-inch by 3-inch portrait at 300 dpi. By the way, if you're wondering what the pixel count is, it's 1,200 pixels by 900 pixels is really all I have in this photo. Well, I don't want that small of a print. What I would like is 24 by 18 inches at 300 dpi, and this is a stunning image that you can print as a poster that's 24 inches wide, and it looks absolutely stunning. The next thing you're going to do with it is pause video. And what's nice about video is that there are thousands of incredible stills that are in your video, and they are at exactly the right moment in time for a photograph. Unfortunately, there is not enough information in video. But after you got Gigapixel AI, you will never say not enough information. So, any photo you have, if you crop in on it, there doesn't seem to be enough detail in the eyes or the fur or the details around the face, whereas now Gigapixel AI can actually imagine what all these details should look like. If your zoom lens isn't zoom enough, no worries. When you crop in, you can just keep zooming in further and further and further with Gigapixel AI. So there's the way the photo came out of your camera, and that's after Gigapixel. And then cropping in on a photo. An intimate moment between two monkeys? Not really. It's actually just a mirror. This is a great example of how you can tell a different story just by cropping in on your photograph. But usually photographers are afraid of cropping in because of the loss of resolution. With Gigapixel, you are never going to miss resolution ever again. In fact, this technology is so powerful that even if we were to give it the worst case scenario, okay, this is pretty much the worst case scenario right here, where we have severe JPEG compression. And once again, this is no challenge for Gigapixel AI. One more time. This is the way that the photograph just simply was downloaded off the internet. And this is Gigapixel. Just for a quick comparison, this is what Adobe's Photoshop would do to that image to try to clean it up. And that's what Gigapixel does to clean up that photo. All right, so Gigapixel will definitely revolutionize the way you think about resolution. And finally, for those of you who love photographing with a smartphone, this is a photograph that was done on an iPhone. And as you know, as you zoom in further and further on just the 12 megapixels of your iPhone camera, you eventually hit your pixels. After Gigapixel, now your iPhone is a 400 megapixel camera. Yes, this is the way that the pixels look coming out of your iPhone, and this is the way that Gigapixel deals with it. And it doesn't even matter what kind of detail you zoom in on. So if I was to zoom in on the smallest details in the photograph, like the top of this tower right here or this column, suddenly Gigapixel is going to hallucinate all the proper details in there. That's the resolution that came out of your camera, and that's Gigapixel AI. All right. So now we're going to transition into some of the things that you do with Topaz that are going to be for artistic applications. Art is when you want to push your photography to a different level. So instead of just living with the photograph, just having the traditional texture of photography, you want something different. You want something that's totally crazy, that is just art. So starting off with a photo like this, if you suddenly wanted to make it look like a sketch, sure. Or vice versa. Let's say you started out with a black and white photo of the cat and you wanted to go crazy with the psychedelic colors and patterns. This is where Topaz Studio's artistic abilities really shine. So we use Topaz Studio all the time for creating paintings. And what's amazing about Topaz Studio is you'll notice that it actually takes real brush strokes on a canvas. And that's why as you look across my arm or across my shirt, you could see the real textures of brush strokes. Well, that's because that's exactly what Topaz Studio does. It takes real brush strokes on your canvas, but it does it intelligently. So no matter what the subject of your photo is, any style you want. This is like an interesting crayon-like style with a brick pattern in the background. Or if you wanted to do something crazy and off the wall, like this one right here. Yes, what a beautiful painting of just this photograph of the dog. Well, just to demonstrate to you how fun Topaz Studio is to use, grab a photograph, like this photo right here. All right. And again, remember, you can do this either standalone or Lightroom or Photoshop. And we'll open up Topaz Studio 2. Topaz Studio 2 is an amazing, non-destructive, and non-linear photography editing program. In this case, since I want to do something artistic, let's jump down here and choose AI Remix. We'll choose the abstract model. And the first thing I want to do is make sure there's no saturation. And we'll bring up the brightness and the contrast, and that immediately gives us this cool sketch effect. I'll zoom in on that just a little bit further for you. This is the way that the photo came out of your camera, and that is the effect that we made in a matter of seconds using Topaz Studio. Now, Topaz Studio is more than just artistic effects. It also has a very powerful dehazing technology. So let's find a photo that is suffering from haze. Here's a great example right here that has a haze problem. A lot of haze in this photograph. It's no challenge for Topaz Studio 2's dehaze. If you've ever tried using dehazing in Lightroom, every Topaz Studio 2 user swears by the quality of the dehaze in Studio 2. All you do is select dehaze, and now we crank up the strength, and we're done. Let's do a quick comparison side by side. As we choose the side-by-side view, you'll notice that on the left, in the most hazy part of the photograph, you cannot see through the haze. Whereas on the right, I can see the trees in the background, I can see the mountain in the background. All the details that were essentially missing from the hazy photo have been now regained and have been correctly rendered using Topaz Dehaze. And if you're happy with the results, all you do is just click on Accept, takes it back into Photoshop. So essentially, there's the before, and that's the after. All right, so that was a brief overview of the kind of things that you can do with Topaz Studio. And as I said, it is the ultimate workhorse for anything that you're going to do that is artistic. It doesn't matter if you want to take your favorite portrait and make it into a painting, like what we've done over here, or just if you wanted to take a shot of Venice and make it into a painting like this. By the way, this photo you're looking at right there, it's an iPhone photo. Yes, there's the iPhone photo right there. And there is Topaz Studio. And the same for this beautiful painting. It's another iPhone photo that was processed in a matter of seconds inside of Topaz Studio. All right. So now we're going to transition into another one of the flagship products from Topaz, which is Topaz Adjust. Adjust is meant to just simply make your photos pop. So now we're not interested in creating something wild and different. We're interested in just squeezing every last bit of detail and quality out of the photo that you have currently just to take it to the next level. So now you start off with a variety of beautiful presets. You click on a preset and immediately you have an effect. Or if you like, you can take advantage of the AI that's built into Topaz Adjust. If I was to choose the standard AI, look at what just happened. In the original photo, there is kind of like a yellow overcast to the photograph that I had actually not noticed when I first took the photo. Whereas now, it has automatically perfectly white balanced the photo for me. I didn't even have to think about it. The AI just took care of it. But I want to make this photo punch. I really want to make it come to life. So with bringing up the Clarity's micro contrast adjustment, look at how beautifully all the water droplets just come through. Or on the detail, as we bring that up just a little bit more, we can push those details even further. And if you're happy with the results, all you do is click apply. So basically, this is the way the photo came out of your camera, and that's Topaz Adjust. I use Adjust on just about every photo that I've ever taken. And what that means is there are times that I can throw at it things that are really, really boring. So I'll find a few nice old boring photos of mine that went through Topaz Adjust. Like here's a photo that came from my honeymoon. Overcast sky, all I got was a silhouette of the Eiffel Tower. Boom. That's what Adjust is all about. Suddenly taking a photo that is that boring and really making it pop. Or doing things that are over the top crazy, like this is the Valley of Fire outside of Las Vegas. And this time I went really crazy and overboard, just bringing out all the details and the colors from this boring silhouette photo. and that is Topaz Adjust. And I've left the best for last because my favorite part of this demonstration today is Mask AI. Masking is just one of these things that's tedious, that always gets people down. But we're going to make masking fun and fast. So I've got less than 4 seconds to perfectly cut this dog out of the background, and I'll even count down to 4 seconds for you. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, 0. If we were really done, not only are we supposed to have a perfect mask, which is what you see here, we're supposed to have actually a perfect cutout. There's the mask, there's the cutout, and when you're happy with it, you just click apply. And when you zoom in right now in Photoshop, you'll notice that every little strand of hair and all the details. Now, please keep in mind that this is what the photograph used to look like a few seconds ago. That's the way the photo came out of your camera. And now, the little dog is a cutout that you can put anywhere you want. Let's try this again, but this time around, let's do it with the new AI capabilities of Mask AI and some of the new features in Mask AI that will help you blur the background. So let's start out with this photo here. You'll notice how the background is a little too close to our subject, and that's why there's a lot of details to the background. So when we take this photo into Photoshop, this time around, instead of manually masking our character, we're going to choose a new option, which is called Auto Detect Subject. I'm already done. It has already perfectly found a mask, and it's going to, of course, isolate our subject away from the background. But this time around, instead of replacing the background, we're going to choose the new blur option. Okay, now look at how cool this is. As we look at our actual mask, okay, or as we look at our final results, you can see that the strength of the blur in the background is a little too high right now. And that's why I like to just take the strength and we'll bring it down a bit. Watch this. Now remember, this is how blurry it was, or I should say the lack of blur in the original photo. But as you bring it up, you'll get it just right. Like right about here, we have added so much more depth to the photograph and we have allowed you to focus on your subject. And also, because now the foreground and the background have been separated from one another, it means that we can have some fun. Maybe you decide that the background should be completely desaturated. Wow, now the background and the foreground are really different from each other. Or you decide, conversely, that the foreground should be desaturated. You can do anything you want because they are now two separate layers and they'll be regarded as separate things, the same way that Photoshop would look at them as separate layers, but you don't have to have Photoshop to be able to composite using Mask AI. All right, we're going to do just two last composites, and one of the most difficult things to composite is a tree, especially when you're trying to find the sky behind a tree. Trees just have way too many details. No problem for Mask AI. This time around, instead of choosing Auto Detect Subject, now we're going to choose Auto Detect Sky. Wow. Now, the AI is really, really good, but once in a while it might leave out just these little details like the leaves that are on the side of the tree. So feel free to touch those up manually. And once you do, flood fill the interior of a tree, and we are ready to go. Just choose Compute Mask. The AI thinks about it for a little bit, and we're done. That is absolutely a beautiful mask. And the way that you'll know that this mask is perfect is especially when you zoom in on it, where you'll see that every little detail of the original trees that are across the horizon there have now been perfectly captured in this mask. And it was done completely automatically. But this time around, we want to replace the background with a different sky. And here's the way we're going to do that. Under the Background tab, we've already seen what the blur is all about. But this time around, let's choose Load Image. I have a background folder here and just a variety of beautiful mountains. I should say clouds. So let's get the clouds in here. I'm going to make the light come in a little bit more from that side. And what really finishes off a composition like this isn't just by putting the clouds in the background, because now the foreground seems like it's a little too blue or it's a little too cold versus that warm orange yellow background. So feel free to select your foreground element here and just crank up the temperature for the foreground. Oh yeah, And that is beautiful. Now everything just lines up perfectly. And then when you zoom in on it, you're going to be in awe of how, when you put these things side by side, keep in mind that on the left-hand side, this is the original photograph, what came out of your camera, and on the right is sky replacement that we did in a matter of seconds. And no matter how closely anyone examines any of these things, even the most subtle details of the leaves and the branches or the distant trees across the horizon have all been perfectly captured with Mask AI. So we're going to finish off this presentation today with the most difficult thing to mask in the world. The veils. Veils are hard. Our bride never went to the Monument Valley. And no, she never went to the beach either. Actually, it's just her lawn. And this time around, we've got less than 10 seconds to perfectly cut her out of the background. So, Lightroom, Photoshop, standalone, it doesn't matter. When you jump into Mask AI, all you're going to do, just like before, is ask for auto-detect subject. Now, in this case, it did find our bride, but it did not find the veil. So, we're going to make sure that we manually go in here and touch up the veil. There we go. Okay, let me bring in a little bit of a flood fill over here, just so we make sure that the veil is taken care of. Anything that you do in blue, essentially, is what the computer thinks about. And we're going to now use the latest translucent model. This AI model was designed for things that are transparent or translucent, and her veil is definitely translucent. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. When you look at the mask, you can see that the mask is properly representing the transparency that's supposed to be in her veil. I like to touch up a little bit on the left-hand side there because there's more transparency that needs to come in from the left. And then finally, as we look at our final mask, this defringe option over here is great when you want to take care of any color contamination that might be left behind in transparent areas. And when you're happy with it, you click apply. Now please remember, this is another major wow. This is how your photograph came out of your camera. This is Mask AI. You can put her anywhere you want, and you can put her on any background. That is Mask AI. So, you're probably wondering what the price is for all these amazing products. Well, we have got the most amazing special that Topaz has ever had in its history. First, starting with the utility bundle, Sharpen AI, the highest quality way of removing blur from your photos. Denoise AI, the industry standard in removing high ISO noise. JPEG to RAW, which I didn't get a chance to show you, but it is remarkable in being able to convert any of your JPEG photos to the quality and the bit depth of RAW. And then finally, Gigapixel Ai. The best way of increasing the resolution of your images, it doesn't matter if you shoot with a DSLR or with a smartphone, imagine having 6 times the resolution of any camera with Gigapixel Ai, and it's great for cropping in on your photos too. Normally, when you add up the price of these 4 products, it adds up to $360. The online price for these products currently is on a sale for $195.99. But we're going to do even better than that, because for Photo Plus, with a 30% off, it comes down to only $137.19. Now that's amazing. Then we have also, for those of you who are interested in a creator bundle, Mask AI, the best way of creating incredible quality masks in record time. Topaz Studio 2, for all the artists that want to take their photos to the next level and to create some truly remarkable art. And don't forget that dehaze that just really brings all the colors and the richness of your photos out of the haze. And then finally, Adjust AI will just make your photos pop. These 3 products normally add up to about $280. The online price brings it down to $149.99, but with the Photo Plus 30% off, only $104.99. And of course, finally, we've got the big enchilada, the utility bundle plus the creator bundle, all 7 products, $345.98, but for the show special at Photo Plus, only $242.19. This is the best way of taking advantage of every product that Topaz has. So this is the one that I highly, highly recommend, where there's nothing missing. You'll have all of our amazing tools. And now, here is how you make your purchase. All you have to do is go to topazlabs.com, and where it says Products, the Products tab, select All Products. And then as you scroll down, you're going to notice that you have a couple of different options for the bundles. We have the Utility Bundle, which currently sells for $195.99. But here's how you take advantage of the coupon code. Click on that item, and it's going to immediately add it to your shopping cart. But then you'll notice over here where it says coupon code, just type in Topaz Plus. And when you click on that apply coupon, look what happens. Right there, I'm sure you already noticed it. Now, it's going to apply that minus $58.80, which brings that down to $137.19. It's that easy, and you can use this coupon code until the end of July 2021 to purchase any individual product or any groups of products. Now also, please keep in mind that this also applies to the amazing product from Topaz, Video Enhance AI. So for all you video enthusiasts that want to increase the resolution of your videos, this is the only desktop AI application for increasing video resolution, and that normally sells for $199.99 on the Topaz Labs website, and of course you can take 30% off of that one as well. I want to first thank you for watching this presentation, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, because from today all the way up until the end of July 2021, I will be available almost every day to be able to do either online live demonstrations or to answer your questions. Thanks again, and I will see you online.